This is U.S. Army Closer Look.
I think the job is pretty awesome.
Innovating.
Insight.
Soldiers.
Mission.
Closer Look.
Closer look.
Those who were there.
And what we need to make sure is we have the most capable Army to deliver specific effects on a battlefield relative to U.S. national security interests.
Those experiences, those strategies.
Closer look.
Closer look.
Army Media. Hello, and thank you for joining us on Closer Look. I'm Elliot Valdez.
What this deployment reinforced to me was that you can trust junior leaders. My name's Captain Cliff Favors. I'm the company commander for Bravo Company, 3rd Battalion, 187th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Air Assault.
Our own Jacques Banneman spoke with Captain Favors and other U.S. Army soldiers who've recently returned from deployment in Afghanistan.
If they have an end state and they know your left and right limit as a commander, they will absolutely execute. They will take the initiative. They will create solutions to problems that you won't even see. They'll identify them at their level. They will work it out there, and then they will come to you with a solution that, maybe sometimes isn't the best one, but it works. And then that's gaining experience, and it builds their confidence as leaders, and it just makes them better to move up to that next level. And that's something that we, during this decisive action rotation, as we move into the next training cycle, we'll focus on is pushing decisions to those junior leaders, facing them with some adversity that allows them to work through problem sets and build that self-reliance on themselves and their team to come up with good, feasible solutions to problems.
And build that into your training, man.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding.
Yep.
Got a story or
Absolutely. So I'll kind of take a couple of those one instance things and roll them into an event that happened at the Provincial Governor's Palace in Kandahar City. So there was an HPA attack. It was a couple explosive devices inside the Governor's Palace. And then the Provincial Chief of Police reacted to it. My company was notified. We had the partnership with them. We were guardian angels for the advisors. We were up there on a weekly basis interacting. So, we get the first call for support. The company, over the next 3 days, went to the Provincial Governor's Palace to escort and secure a United Arab Emirates investigation team as well up there to investigate, because it was some diplomatic officials from the UAE that were involved in the incident. So it was an international incident. There were multi-nation effort, and then within the Afghan civilian governmental construct, there were, MOI, MOD, their national directorate for security was up there. So for 3 days, really, we were interacting with, multinational leaders. We were helping, execute an investigation involving, diplomatic personnel, recover remains, secure a site, and then all through, a movement from Kandahar Airfield to Kandahar City on a daily basis with, people that had not been in the country for years at that point, with all the vehicle and all the equipment that comes with that sort of, unit to
you can't train up for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest test that happened relatively early on in the deployment, with our ability to, be flexible and then, execute a security mission with a dynamic, at that point, small task force up in the city.
Wow.
So,
give me a sense of your pride level right now. Thinking about
the soldiers and junior leaders did an outstanding job. It was a pretty volatile situation when we got there, just because of the nature of the attack. So it was tense for the next couple of days, but they handled it extremely well, especially in a situation that you can't train for. So
makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I heard about it, but I'm looking at it in a news reel. I'm looking at it in a news report that takes all of 20 seconds. You just gave me a life lesson, and I'm like, okay. Any last comments, thoughts, ideas, sir?
No, I just, it's a great opportunity to be able to come here and speak with you and tell the story of the Rakhisan Brigade over this last deployment, and just share some of the stories of our success and the Afghan success. And it's a privilege to be here, and I appreciate it.
Well, it is an honor for us to have that story to tell, and that you entrusted it with us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Job well done, sir.
Thank you.
Closer look.
Closer look.
So I'm Colonel Larry Burris. I'm the commander of 3rd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division Air Assault out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Rock Sans.
Outstanding, Hooah. And you've recently returned from a deployment to Afghanistan. What did you get the most satisfaction out of? How did you coalesce all of those disparate feelings and just thoughts? I mean, this is a huge impacting mission.
So the two things that make me the most satisfied or make me the proudest are the job that our soldiers did every single day. You know, in spite of the hardships, in spite of taking casualties, and unfortunately, we lost 3 soldiers during the deployment, that our soldiers continued to operate, to do what we asked them to do. No matter what the conditions were or where it was, our soldiers were willing to go there. And the other piece is the improvements that we saw in the Afghan National Defense Security Forces, you know, particularly in our area down in the south. We saw great improvement in their ability to transition from a posture when we got there where they were primarily defensive, they were static in their operations, which made them vulnerable to the enemy. And as we were leaving, we saw them conducting more offensive operations which were planned and generated by their own chain of command. It wasn't us trying to push them to do something or will them to conduct an operation. It was they were generating these things on their own. And so those are the two things that I walk away with the most satisfaction. But obviously the most important that being the way our soldiers performed and their dedication to duty during the mission, sir.
When did you guys go out?
So, sir, the first elements of the brigade started deploying in July of 2016. To provide you a little bit of context, the brigade completed its 7th deployment in October of 2015. And the brigade was notified approximately a month later that it would be redeploying to Afghanistan during the summer of 17. And so our 1st battalion deployed in July of 2017 to Kabul. The rest of the brigade, the deploying elements of the brigade deployed in October of 2016. And at that point, we deployed the majority of the brigade headquarters to Kandahar. And then we deployed 4 more battalions into Afghanistan. All the battalions were geographically dispersed between Bagram, Kabul, Kandahar, and Helmand province initially. And we also deployed our cavalry squadron to Kosovo to conduct peacekeeping operations in Kosovo. We left 1 battalion back home at Fort Campbell, our brigade support battalion, and also some other elements of the brigade remained back at Fort Campbell. In total, we deployed about 50% of the Brigade Combat Team forward, sir.
Outstanding. Man, you guys depleted the home front. And
we did. I mean, the nature of the deployment is that a lot of the leaders go forward based on the train, advise, assist mission in Afghanistan. Again, I mentioned earlier that the brigade was geographically dispersed. We also had differing missions across the brigade. The brigade headquarters formed integrated with the 36th Infantry Division from the Texas National Guard to form the Train, Advise, Assist Command South headquarters in Kandahar province, where we were responsible for advising the Afghans of the 205th Corps and the 404th Police Zone. We had 1 battalion in Kandahar, which was responsible for force protection of the Kandahar airfield, security in the ground defense area around the airfield, and then also providing security and guardian angel support for advisors. The battalions in Helmand conducted mission command for Task Force Forge. They conducted security force operations, guardian angel support, and partnered with the Afghans as well. Our battalion in Bagram served as the theater response force, where they were a direct report to the Resolute Support Headquarters, prepared to respond to any requirements deemed necessary anywhere in the area of operations. And then we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had 1 battalion up in Kabul integrated with the UK forces there as part of the Kabul Security Force.
Wow. I had like 6 questions, and I think you just took care of 7 of them. Sir, that is an awesome responsibility. How did you find the command? Now, you were split. You were dual-hatted during this period. The first part of that, you were assigned to support NATO.
Yes, sir. So to 2-part answer to your question. So we were operated under 2 mission sets. So the U.S. mission is Operations Freedom Sentinel, which is the U.S. mission in Afghanistan. And then we also operated under the authorities of the NATO mission, which is Operation Resolute Support in Afghanistan. My role as a brigade commander was much different than it was, for example, when we're back at home station at Fort Campbell, where the brigade is consolidated together. So not only was I brigade commander in theater, I was also the deputy commander of TAAC South. And so it was a dual hat role for me personally. In terms of, I mentioned we were geographically dispersed. All the battalions except for one were working for different headquarters across Afghanistan or in Kosovo. And I think, people ask me, was that difficult? Was that uncomfortable? And my answer is no. And the reason why is, before we deployed, when the brigade came back in October 15, we went right back into a decisive action training environment, focusing on offensive, defensive operations, preparing to go to the Joint Readiness Training Center, which we executed a rotation there in May 16. And so through that train up, we were able to build a cohesive team where battalion and company level leaders understood how to operate off of commander's intent. And so the Command Sergeant Major and I were very comfortable with our battalions being dispersed and operating for different headquarters. Not at one time did I question what they were doing or why they were doing that. I knew they would do the right thing. They would accomplish a mission without any worries.
So you didn't have to be concerned with direct comms during the mission because you had already preset.
Yes, sir. And so most, being based out of Kandahar as the deputy commander there at TAAC South, that's where I spent most of my time. But the Sergeant Major and I were able to get out and see all of our battalions on a regular basis, to visit with them. We also did things where we communicated via VTC. Every 2 weeks I would do one with all of my battalion commanders on the net, for example, so that we can continue to operate as a brigade. Because for us, it was very important going into this mission with folks geographically dispersed really in 7 different locations, to include Fort Campbell, to make sure that we maintained our brigade identity. We were still able to communicate with one another, communicate back to the division at Fort Campbell, back to our rear elements at Fort Campbell, and to our families. And so we worked real hard to develop a plan going in to make sure we stayed as a brigade combat team, even though we were geographically dispersed.
How important is that, though? Maintaining that brigade ID and in the midst of all of this disbursement, how important is that? So
for this organization, it's very important, because I think this brigade, of all the brigades in the Army and all the ones that I've served in, has the strongest identity. When somebody sees a Tory, they know that the Rakkasans have been there. And so soldiers have a lot of great pride in serving in this organization. And so it's important for us to maintain that identity, to maintain the legacy and the linkages we have to our strong veterans organizations that support the brigade. And so going in, it was very, very important for us to maintain our identity and our culture as a brigade, as the Rakkasan Brigade Combat Team.
Is that part of the lessons learned that you bringing back so that future missions can be enhanced? Yes, sir.
So as the Army talks about standing up security force assistance brigades, one of the things that we did last week was TRADOC Capability Manager SFAB came up to Fort Campbell, and Colonel Accord and his team spent the week with us, garnering lessons learned about how we advised, for example, to what level did we advise, what was the security force structure associated with it, what was the organization that when we went down to do expeditionary advising, what and who did we take with us, and what recommendations did we have in terms of manning and equipping for that particular organization. So I think as the Army moves forward, they're reaching out to units who have recent experience with this, particularly in Afghanistan, to make sure that we build the right organization with the right structure and the right people.
Any final thoughts, sir?
No, sir. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I'm extremely proud of my soldiers, extremely proud of my brigade, and we're happy to continue to serve our nation, sir. Thank you.
This is U.S. Army. Closer look.
I think the job is pretty awesome.
Innovating. Insight.
Soldiers.
Mission.
Closer look.
Those who were there.
And what we need to make sure is we have the most capable Army to deliver specific effects on a battlefield relative to U.S. national security interests.
Those experiences, those strategies.
Closer look.
Army Media.